everybody, Earl at thelogbook.com, back with more Tales of Infinite Sheep. Oh, actually, we're going to jump species today. We're going to talk about infinite piglets, because I don't think there's a better example of how I was doing things really early in my career than this spot, and I will tell you that the spot that I'm going to be talking about today played a big part in getting me out of the Fort Smith market. Believe it or not, as cheap and literally cheesy as it was. So here's the backstory on this. The Ferris Broadcasting Stations had a lunchtime sports call-in show called The Huddle, which was Marty Houston and John Wilhelm as the hosts, and me kind of doing the tech thing, running the show behind the scenes, getting the calls lined up, and running the graphics and running the spots. It was almost impossibly low-tech. The spots were all on tape. The graphics were not. I don't even think we were using a video toaster for the graphics. We were using a really primitive cousin of a Chiron that was intended to run, your local cable access stations scrolling community billboard displays in a very 8-bit looking kind of way. It was it was not great TV. I don't actually have any of the show itself to show you, and I don't think we ever recorded it. I don't think we even so much as recorded air checks. This is one of those things where to ever see it again, you would have to leapfrog out into space faster than the speed of light, get ahead of the signal, and catch it, as it wafts away from Earth. But we did do promos for it. Oh, man, did we do promos for it. And we were trying to make it look like, I don't want to say make it look like something it wasn't. We were trying to make it look fun. And a lot of the time, what it was, rather than fun, was random people calling in on their lunch breaks to gripe about the most recent performance of whatever Arkansas Razorbacks team had just played the previous weekend, whether it was the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team, what have you, the track team, I don't know. The whole area, and this was a good warm-up for my move to Green Bay. The whole area was very fixated on Arkansas Razorback sports. Because Arkansas, what else do we have going here? And like I said, this kind of helped me get ready for the move to the Green Bay market, where, of course, everything, especially in the late 90s, was Packers everywhere. Nothing but Packers. Non-stop Packers. You must worship the Packers, or we will chase you out of town with torches and pitchforks and cheese hats. But that was in the future. We're talking about Arkansas Razorbacks' obsession, and that was what dominated a lot of the chatter on the Huddle. Surprisingly little high school football talk. That always kind of... It amazed me how much that was not in the conversation. It always seemed to be college football. But we were trying to make the Huddle look like something anyone should want to watch, anyone should want to call in on. And yeah, it's also occurring to me now, it's like, oh, wait a minute. what do I do for Roddenberry now? I do their live show. I line up the calls. I run the graphics. It's the huddle. It's the space huddle. But let me tell you something. The space huddle never had a promo like this. So here is the background on this spot. One of our sales guys, I think it was Craig Smith, came in one day and said he was pet sitting. And I remember I was kind of like, are you? Because you're here at work. And he's like, oh no, I've got it. I brought this animal to work with me, and it's a pot-bellied piglet. Local TV in Arkansas in the 90s, folks. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, the thought gradually emerged, hey, we've got a little tiny pig, Arkansas Razorbacks, the Hogs. There's something here, and I was trying to formulate some way to come up with this. Well, then, of course, Craig, because he's a sales guy, has to go, call on clientele. Guess who wound up with a pot-bellied piglet in his office? Hey, Earl likes animals. He's got cats. This is like a cat, but with more bacon. So here I am, sitting back in the production area with a pot-bellied piglet who really does not want to be in the production area. I really think the pot-bellied piglet, and I forget I think her name was Daisy? I don't think she wanted to be in a television station that day. Hey, there's some days I could totally relate with that. Right there with you, Daisy. Right there with you. So I had a habit at the time, and, I am sure that no matter how much I keep my pulsating face behind this microphone and, keep this a shoulders up shot, I don't think it has escaped anyone's notice. I'm a large dude. I have eaten perhaps too well in my lifetime, and will almost certainly pay very dearly for it, probably sooner than I think. At the time, I had a terrible, terrible habit of picking up those, from the deli section of the local grocery store. They had those cheese balls with, nuts on the outside of it. I believe the sharp cheddar was my go-to cheese ball. And as disgusting as this sounds, and yes, it doesn't sound great to me now. I think about this now, and I'm just like, oh, what was I thinking? That was lunch. I'd keep it in my fridge at home. I lived in an apartment at the other end of the block. A whole different story there that I'll get to later. I would bring at least one day a week, that cheese ball was lunch. It's like, dude, I was eating like a 20-something bachelor who had kind of raised himself from a teenager with no real idea of nutrition, cooking, that sort of thing. All of which, I say I was like that. No, I was that. That actually was how I got to be who I am today. So I had that cheese ball with me, and that was going to be lunch. Well, Daisy definitely took an interest in my cheese ball, and I thought, if this will calm me down, here, I will slice off, a little chunk of this cheese ball, and you can have a cheese ball. Daisy, the pot-bellied piglet, ate her little slice of the cheese ball, and very much like a cat, found a patch of sunlight streaming in from, the really tall, narrow windows in the production area at the KPBI building, which was formerly known as the Ward Hotel in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Building still exists, barely. She curled up in a shaft of sunlight like a cat and went the hell to sleep. Okay, so now I have a sleeping pot-bellied piglet in the floor of the production room. She is not getting up for nothing. She is sleeping off that little slice of a cheeseball, which I am sure was the most delicious thing she had ever eaten up to that point in her little pot-bellied piglet life. How am I going to make a spot out of that? Well, I suddenly had a brainstorm. It involved running across the building to Marty Houston's office because I knew that Marty had on his desk this little miniature Arkansas Razorbacks football helmet. So I literally ran into Marty's office while he was on the phone with someone, grabbed this off his desk, said bye, and left with it. This sort of thing that happened. This is the sort of thing that I did to my coworkers on the regular. I put the little helmet next to Daisy, the sleeping piglet, and I rolled tape on her snoozing next to the little Arkansas Razorbacks football helmet. That night, I went home because I had musical instruments at home. I had a 4-track recorder that did variable speed. I did a music box version of the Arkansas Razorbacks fight song. I did it as like 2 or 3 tracks and tried so hard to make it sound authentically like a music box. I thought I actually did pretty good with it. And then what I did was I had an open track left on this 4-track cassette recorder. I jacked the speed all the way down, so it was like, whoa. And I sat there and it came up with a script, read it in this kind of cutesy voice. Okay, what happens when you speed that back up is now your voice is in chipmunk territory. Kind of like maybe a piglet voice. So I'm actually going to shut up and show this thing to you because you kind of have to see it to believe it.
Some pigs are happy to be lazy and fat and roll around in a puddle. But I want to grow up and be a Razorback, so they'll talk about me on the huddle.
Weekdays at noon on Fox 46.
Looking back at this, I think the thing that really strikes me as cool, it really is the sound mix. The sound mix is doing a huge amount of heavy lifting on this spot because the video can't. The video, although it is moving video, it's a sleeping piglet. And you notice I had to subtitle myself. I had to subtitle my little Piggy voice to make sure that what was being said could be understood if it was a little too chipmunk, shall we say. But the thing that really strikes me is that was not a bad sound mix for coming out of the 4-track cassette recorder and Casio keyboards I had at home, and me speeding up my own voice and just bringing the audio in the next day, and boom, it's a spot.
Some pigs are happy to be lazy and fat and roll around in a puddle. But I want to grow up and be a Razorback, so they'll talk about me on the huddle.
Weekdays at noon on Fox 46.
So, really, this is that may be like the example of what working at that station was like. But I'm sure this is something that's kind of universal to a lot of local stations in the 90s that did not have... There was no time, there was no budget, there weren't really ideas beyond someone from sales coming in and saying, hey, here's a pig. You put lipstick on it for reals. And yet, that was also, I'm going to say that was 96, perhaps? 96, early 97. And I don't want to sound like I'm boasting too much. It's like, I knew I had something there. It's like, oh, that actually came out pretty cool. Despite everything. Because there was no script going into it. The idea was forming in real time, and I literally had to execute the audio mix on my own time at home. That was off the clock, which I was 24, 25 then. I'm in my 50s now. I really need to stop doing that crap. But anyway, yeah, that was the pig spot. That went to the top of my show reel. And I can't help but notice that once that was the first thing on my reel, which back then, you have to keep in mind, children, there was no YouTube. You were buying, often in bulk, like little 30-minute VHS tapes from various vendors on the bouncing baby internet. You could get these tapes, or, if your station had such tapes for some reason, you'd wait for them to retire those tapes, and then it'd be like, you're going home with me. I only say that because the statute of limitations has expired. And you'd bulk erase those little 30-minute VHSs. You'd put labels on them. You'd put your reel on them. Which I literally had a 2 VCR setup at home that was devoted to making copies of my reel to send out. And you would put those in the mail with your resume. And you would carpet bomb every station in the country. And one of the stations that went to that had an opening in the promotions department was WACY in Green Bay. And so there was lots of stuff on the reel that could have played an equal part in getting me hired, but that was at the top of the reel. And the fact that they saw a spot for a sports call-in show with a sleeping piggy, and sports being considered this masculine thing at the time in the 90s, the fact that they did not immediately turn off the tape on seeing that spot with the piggy, I think that indicated, okay, we don't know if this guy is actually using the whole brain, but he's using something. And, and he's desperate to get out. That's the pig story. It took me a lot longer to tell it than I really intended it to. But, yeah, go enjoy some bacon bits and think about that spot.